Hey guys, welcome to my video. So today we're going to be discussing the pros and cons of owning snakes. Hopefully the lighting isn't too terrible. I am having to film this at night because most of my snakes are active towards the end of the night. So in no particular order, first I'm going to address the cons. I do have my snakes hanging out with me today. First we have Cindy, my super pastel ball python. She loves being out, and so she's going to be hanging out with us for the first part of the video, and then I'm going to bring Spade on for the next part of the video. So let's go ahead and adjust so let's go ahead and address some cons. And I have my notes, so if you see me looking down, that's what that's all about. But the first con that you're going to run into, potentially large enclosures. So when you're talking snakes that get 5 to 6 feet long, you're going to have enclosures that can accommodate that size of a snake. So speaking in terms of your room or your living arrangements, it's going to take up a big portion of your living space. And so for a lot of people, that may be a con and just a reason that they don't want to get into at least big bodied snakes. If you go with something small like a Kenyan sand boa or a Western hognose, children's pythons, things that stay relatively on the smaller side, then you're probably not going to have to get a 6 foot, long enclosure. But there is that potential if you want to get into bigger snakes. Our next con is feeding. So unfortunately, you can't just make your snake a vegetarian because you want to. So they have to feed. They have to have a carnivorous diet. And so whether you feed live or frozen, for some people, it may make them uncomfortable to have to feed a rat or a chick or whatever you're choosing as your feeding, or whatever you're choosing as your feeder. It may make people uncomfortable to have to feed something that was either once or alive or is alive to their snakes. And so if you're squirmish in that respect, then a snake is definitely not for you. The third con of owning a snake is simply other people fearing your snake. So for some reason, people have innate fears of snakes, and so you may run into an issue where your family members don't want you to own a snake, your significant others, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes people are just freakishly afraid of snakes. And so when it comes to asking somebody to watch it because you're going out of town, or asking somebody to support your decision of getting an animal or getting a snake, you may run into some roadblocks there. The fourth con of a snake is that they're typically not really affectionate. I mean, we like to project our own feelings as human beings onto snakes, but at the end of the day, they could probably care less about our existence. They just know that we're there to feed them, keep them warm, and provide them housing, right? They're just making sure their food comes on time. As far as going so far to say that they love us or they care for us, nah, probably not. They just really don't care. You can't really love on a snake like you would a dog or a cat. I mean, yeah, I can get close to her and I can kind of, do one of these movements, but she don't care. It ain't making her a bit. It ain't adding to her happiness at all. So they're definitely not affectionate. So if you're looking for companionship in that respect, snake's not for you. I mean, in some way they do still provide me companionship, but not in the way that you receive it from a mammal. The next con is traveling with a snake is going to be a lot harder than traveling with a dog or a cat. And this is pertaining to you going somewhere and traveling with it in tow, and also you going somewhere and needing somebody to watch it. So let's address the first one. If you need to travel out of town, it's going to be a lot harder to travel with a snake, because a lot of people are not going to be receptive of having a snake in the car. For example, if you're driving a long distance to get to where you're going, and I'm not really sure about the policy of snakes on planes, but it just doesn't sound like something a lot of people are into. And then we already touched on this a little bit, but getting people that are willing to watch your snake, you got to find the right person. Because I just have people that I know that are just, they don't even want to be in the house with it, let alone taking care of it while you're gone. So having somebody to take care of your snake while you're traveling is definitely going to be a difficult feat if you don't have people in your life that support that decision. And then my last con of owning a snake is that they are more of an observational pet, in that you're not going to take it out and go walking it. You're not going to go play fetch with it. It's not going to come when you call it. It's more of something that you make this pretty vivarium or terrarium or what enclosure, whatever you're terming it. You make this pretty enclosure for it. You put it in there and you pretty much watch it. I do support the people who actually interact with their snakes. I interact with my snakes nearly every day. I like to get them out and socialize them. But there are some people who just don't really socialize with their snakes and they just watch them. So you can pretty much say that they're close to having a fish in that they can be more of an observational pet. So if you're not really looking for that, then maybe a snake isn't for you. I mean, even if you get your snake out, you know, sometimes you can only have them out for 20 minutes before they're pretty much over it. Like, it's only so much that you can even do with them when they are out. So that's why I'm calling them more of an observational pet, because like how I'm holding her now, I mean, you're not just going to sit here and hold her for hours. I mean, they don't really do too much in that regard. So now it's time to address some of the pros. So I'm going to switch snakes and we're going to get Spade out here. So this is my Dumeral's boa Spade. She is also a female like my ball python. They are both about 3 feet long and about 2 years old. And now I'm going to use her to address some of the pros. And I don't mean to have both of them out at the same time exactly, but I couldn't really get Cindy off my arm. So the first pro that we're going to address is that it's fairly easy maintenance when it comes to keeping up with these guys. And when I'm saying maintenance, I'm talking daily maintenance. Once you kind of get your enclosure set up and you get it looking the way that you want to, as far as daily maintenance, you're really not having to do much. You're going to have to spot clean. Snakes everywhere. You're going to have to spot clean. You're going to have to change water bowls. But you're going to have to mist maybe, make sure humidity levels are up, make sure temperatures are right. But outside of that, maintenance is fairly easy. Another pro to owning a snake is that you kind of are an advocate for snakes. We already touched on how people are just innately afraid of snakes for seemingly no reason. And so sometimes when you are the one who breaks the barriers and gets a snake, you can kind of introduce them to those family members or those friends that you have that are freaked out by snakes. And you can kind of show the good side of snakes, that they aren't as scary as people deem them to be. They aren't as aggressive as people think they are. That for the most part, unless you just really have a rowdy snake, they're pretty docile. They're pretty calm. And I've gotten a lot of people into touching and holding the snake for the first time. And I'm actually proud of that, because I feel like we're breaking down those stereotypes that have been built up against snakes for decades. So what I'm about to say, we've put in a con category, but I think it's a bit of both. So when it comes to traveling, if you're only gone for a few days, you can go out of town and not have to worry about anybody watching your snake. You change the water dish before you leave, you feed them before you leave, and you're good for a good 3 to 4 days without having to worry about anything. Of course, the concern is always that there is an electrical failure or something like that, and that would be cause for concern. But for the most part, you can travel and do what you want to do without having to worry about getting a pet sitter. Now, let's say that you do have a willing pet sitter. It's also a pro in that they don't have to do much when they're pet sitting for you. They might change a few water dishes, make sure light bulbs aren't exploding and stuff like that. But for the most part, they're just coming to look at your snake and leave. So if you have somebody to cover for you, it's pretty much easy for them to be able to do that. Another pro is low smell. So I don't really have issues with my snakes being stinky. It's not like a litter box where you're worried about odor from them using the bathroom. They may have an odor when they defecate. I'm really not sure. I can't recall having ever smelled it. But for the most part, they are low on smell. And I feel like that's a really good pro. My next pro is no noise. So you won't even know the snake is there, honestly. I mean, they might be knocking over stuff in their enclosures, but they're not going to be howling. They're not going to be yelling. They might hiss. So you might get a hissy snake, and I've had a hissy snake before. But outside of that, you really don't have too much to worry about. And then my very last pro for owning a snake is that they are relatively inexpensive. You can get snakes for $20. A ball python can go for $20, a normal morph ball python. And then when it comes to setting up their initial enclosures, if you just get you a plastic bin, the basic necessities, I mean, you can really get you a good setup for under $100. Even if you do splurge on your setup and you've got this great glass tank with all of these nice accessories in it, as far as the maintenance beyond that, it's still relatively inexpensive. Especially if you're feeding frozen thaw feeders, if you buy them in bulk, you're really not spending that much on food costs throughout the year, which is a really great pro. If you're using energy efficient electronics, as far as your light bulbs or heat pads, it's really not going to kill your electricity bill, nothing like that. So I would say that these guys are relatively less expensive than your average traditional pets. Where are you going? Oh God. So now I've addressed both the pros and cons with each of my snakes as co-host. And so here's what I will say and end with. If you're thinking about getting a snake, I say go for it. I absolutely adore my snakes. Right now I only have 2. And I will get more in the future, but this is all I have space for now. And they are, even though they don't do too much, they are cool to watch. They're cool to see grow, and you can really turn it into a hobby. Just making sure that they are happy and constantly upgrading their enclosures. All of that I take a great pride in. I'm actually really excited to do it, and it's just something that I really adore doing, and I really enjoy taking care of my snakes and having them run around my arm for an hour or whatever the case may be, watching them run around the living room. It's something that I get happiness out of. And so if you're thinking about getting a snake, I would say do your research, but definitely know that the pros of owning a snake outweigh all of the negatives. And that's what I'm going to end with. I appreciate you guys watching this video. I do have other videos on my channel. Be sure to check them out, and I will see you guys next time. Snakes everywhere.